If you see a woman who has been single for years, don't rush to label her. Don't quietly assume that something must be wrong with her, that she is too difficult, too guarded, or somehow unlucky in love. That conclusion is not only lazy, it completely misses the truth. And if you stay with me until the end, you may begin to see her in a way that changes how you define strength, independence, and even love itself. Because a woman like this is not difficult to love, she is simply difficult to deceive. There is a difference, and most people never take the time to understand it. A woman who has remained single for a long time did not get there by accident. It wasn't just bad luck, bad timing, or a lack of options. In many cases, she had opportunities, real ones. People came into her life. Some said the right things, made the right promises, showed interest, even effort. But somewhere along the way, she started noticing patterns. She began to see beyond words. She learned, sometimes the hard way, that not everything that looks good is good for her. So she made a decision. Not a loud, dramatic decision. Not something she announced to the world, but a quiet, firm choice within herself, to choose peace over confusion, clarity over chaos, and truth over temporary excitement. And that decision changed everything. At first, it may not have been easy. Walking away from something that almost feels right is one of the hardest things anyone can do. Letting go of potential, of what could have been, requires a level of emotional discipline that most people struggle with. But over time, she began to notice something. Every time she chose herself, her life became lighter. Every time she refused to entertain inconsistency, she felt more grounded. Every time she walked away from emotional games, she gained more control over her own happiness. So she stopped settling. Her standards didn't become unrealistic, they became refined. They were shaped by experience, not fantasy. She no longer looked for perfection. She looked for alignment. She didn't need someone to impress her. She needed someone to be real. And that's where most people get it wrong. They see her standards and assume she is too much. But what they don't see is the journey that built those standards, the disappointments, the lessons, the moments she ignored her instincts and paid the price, the times she gave chances when she shouldn't have, the times she stayed longer than she needed to. All of that taught her something valuable. Her time, energy, and emotional space are not things to give away lightly. So now she moves differently. She no longer chases attention. That phase is over. Attention is easy to get, it's everywhere. What she values now is intention, consistency, and depth. Instead of trying to be seen, she observes. She listens carefully. She pays attention to how people move, not just what they say. Because she understands something most people ignore. Actions always reveal the truth. Anyone can say the right words. Anyone can make promises. Anyone can create a moment. But not everyone can maintain consistency. Not everyone can show up the same way when things are no longer new or exciting. And that's exactly what she watches for. Imagine this: someone meets her and tries to impress her with charm, compliments, and confidence. In the past, that might have worked. It might have pulled her in quickly. But now she doesn't rush. She doesn't get carried away by the surface. She watches how that person behaves over time. Do they follow through? Do their actions match their words? Are they consistent when it's inconvenient? If the answer is no, she doesn't argue. She doesn't try to fix them. She simply steps back. Quietly. That's another thing about her. Drama doesn't attract her. In fact, it repels her. Where others might get caught up in emotional highs and lows, she sees it for what it is: instability. And instead of engaging, she chooses distance. Not because she is cold, but because she has learned the cost of staying in environments that drain her. She understands that peace is not something you stumble upon, it's something you protect. And for her, peace has become an investment, something valuable, something that requires boundaries. Think of her life like a well-guarded sanctuary. Not everyone has access. Not everyone is invited in. And it's not about arrogance or pride. It's about preservation. She knows that the wrong person in her space can disrupt everything she has worked to build within herself. So she asks a simple but powerful question, whether consciously or subconsciously. Does this person add to my peace or take away from it? If the answer is unclear, she waits. If the answer is no, she walks away. And if the answer is yes, only then does she begin to open up. Another thing you'll notice about her is that she cannot pretend interest in shallow conversations. Small talk doesn't hold her attention for long, not because she thinks she is better than anyone, but because she values depth. She wants to understand how you think, how you see the world, what drives your decisions. If you cannot challenge her mind, you cannot keep her attention. This is where many people lose her without even realizing it. They focus on surface-level attraction, thinking that's enough. But for her, connection goes deeper. She is not looking for constant entertainment, she is looking for meaning. And that requires effort. It requires presence. It requires authenticity. Now, let's pause for a moment and reflect on this. Ask yourself, when you interact with people, do you focus more on impressing them or understanding them? Do you listen to respond, or do you listen to truly learn who they are? Because a woman like this can tell the difference almost immediately. She is not rushing toward a relationship. She is evaluating whether it's worth entering one at all. And here's something even more important. If your presence does not feel better than her solitude, you simply won't have a place in her life. That might sound harsh, but it's actually very honest. She has spent enough time alone to understand its value. She has built a life where she can enjoy her own company, where she is not dependent on someone else to feel complete. So why would she give that up for something that brings stress, confusion, or emotional instability? She wouldn't. And she won't. So if someone comes into her life with unclear intentions, mixed signals, or manipulative behavior, she doesn't engage in a battle. She doesn't try to prove her worth. She doesn't chase clarity from someone who is committed to confusion. She releases them. And that is power. Because letting go is not always easy, especially when there are emotions involved. But she has already learned the cost of staying too long in situations where she is not valued. She has felt that exhaustion. She has experienced that emotional drain. And she promised herself she would never go back to that place again. Now, let me give you a practical way to understand her mindset even deeper. Imagine two scenarios. In the first scenario, she meets someone who is charming, exciting, and says all the right things, but their actions are inconsistent. They disappear and reappear. They give attention, then withdraw it. They create uncertainty. In the second scenario, she meets someone who may not be overly flashy, but they are consistent. Their actions match their words. They communicate clearly. They respect her time and boundaries. In the past, she might have been drawn to the first scenario. The excitement, the unpredictability, it can feel intense. But now she sees it for what it is, instability disguised as attraction. So she chooses the second. Every time. Because she has trained herself to value stability over stimulation. And that is not something you develop overnight. It comes from experience, from reflection, from choosing growth over comfort again and again. Now here's a question for you to think about. Are you drawn to what feels familiar, even if it's unhealthy? Or are you willing to choose what is right, even if it feels unfamiliar at first? That question alone can change the direction of your relationships. Because what this woman represents is not just independence, it's clarity. It's the ability to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. And that level of awareness changes how you move through life. At the end of the day, the truth about her is simple but powerful. She is not lonely, she is free. Freedom in this context is not about being alone forever. It's about not being controlled by fear, by validation, or by the need to settle. It's about having the strength to walk away from anything that does not align with who you are becoming. She didn't lose people. She found herself. And once you find yourself, you become very careful about who you allow into your life. So the next time you see a woman who has been single for years, don't assume she is missing out. Consider the possibility that she has simply chosen differently. Consider the possibility that she has learned what many people are still struggling to understand. And maybe, just maybe, there is something you can learn from her too. Now take a moment to reflect on this. Are you choosing relationships out of clarity or out of fear of being alone? Are you protecting your peace or constantly sacrificing it for temporary connection? Your answers to these questions matter more than you think. Because at the end of everything, it's not about how many people come into your life. It's about who stays, why they stay, and what they bring with them. If you respect that level of self-worth, then you already understand the message here. And if this made you think a little deeper, then you're already on the right path.